lot. Like it was a lot to really navigate through and to think about and to process while I was there. So, welcome to my Facebook people. I finally got my life together. Okay, so if you if you're on Facebook, welcome. We started early over on Instagram because that was a lot easier. But yeah, so it was just really weird being back in the States, and it felt like the States, weirdly enough, doesn't feel like home to me anymore. And that's because I've spent so much time here in Mexico. Like Mexico feels like home, and things just feel so much easier. When I'm here, it just is different. Like it's really, really different. So, at any rate, so that's what I've kind of been processing since I've been back and just really trying to figure out, how to navigate all of that. So I see Ivy, was I already fluent in Spanish before going to Mexico? No, I actually am not fluent in Spanish, period. And y'all, if y'all have questions, feel free to drop the questions into the chat, and I'll do my best to answer all those questions. But no, I'm not fluent in Spanish. I am actively learning Spanish, so I'm on like day 450 or so on my Duolingo. Hey Sonia, I also had I have a Spanish teacher, so I'm doing those lessons, but no, I'm not fluent in Spanish at all. I know enough to get what I need. So I know how to, say what I need to say. I usually don't have a problem figuring out what I want to say. It's when somebody talks back to me and I'm like, un momento, por favor, because people speak really, really quickly here. So I'm trying to get better with my listening so that I'm able to respond better when people are asking me questions. So, or having a conversation, or I need to navigate things. So, but it's actually a lot easier. Something I can say about Mexican people is they are so incredibly patient. Like, it's a patience that I wish that we in the States extended to people. Because when you think about it, the ability to speak more than one language is a sign of high intelligence. And I think in the States, a lot of times it's looked at as if people that don't speak English are stupid. And so a lot of people will like speak really loudly. They will, like just be real extra, and it's like you screaming at me is not going to help me understand a foreign language. So here in Mexico, they automatically assume that, I'm from the U.S. and they will say, take your time, like say, figure out what you want to say. And when in doubt, Google Translate for the win. Okay. So I have no problem being like, un momento. I get my phone, I type in what I want to say, and we go from there. But I don't feel angst like I thought when I first moved here that I was going to feel a lot of angst about communicating, because again, in the States, we are very much like, come on with the come on, right? And they're not like that here. Like, they're very much like, take your time. Like, say, figure out what you want to say, or they'll even say to me, well, talk to me in English, and I'm like, well, no, I don't want to talk to you in English because I want to practice my Spanish, so, but they allow me to do that. They give me the grace to be able to do that. So I wasn't fluent in Spanish. I figure probably in a couple years I will be. I honestly don't practice as much as I should, but I know that it's a process. What inspired me to go to Mexico City? So I originally was going to go to Medellin. I'm going to tell y'all that story in a minute. So I was originally going to go to Medellin, Colombia, and the COVID numbers had started rising. So all of this was about April to August, if you will, of 2021. And I was looking at the COVID numbers, and the numbers started rising. So I was like, okay, I don't want to go to Medellin if the numbers are high. So where else can I go that they speak Spanish, right? Because that's the only language that I have a little bit extra. So I was like, where else can I go? And I Googled great places for Black expats, and Mexico is one of the places that came up. So I pulled up YouTube and I started looking at all these YouTubers and their experiences in Mexico City or in Mexico, period. And I saw a lot of people were landing in Playa del Carmen. So when I first moved here, I was in Playa del Carmen. So I left the States in October of 2021 and I landed in Playa del Carmen. Playa del Carmen was a very soft place to land. So it is not it's not super touristy like your Cancun and your Tulum. That's like all the rage right now. But there are people that do speak English and they're used to tourists being there. So it was very easy to navigate because they're used to catering to people from the US. And so I was in Playa del Carmen from October to December of 2021. And I think it was more about allowing the trauma to release from my body and reminding myself that I was safe. So I spent a lot of time sitting on my balcony and just really being like, you're okay, like you're safe now, like, you know, it's all right, like you made it, this is gonna be fine. But I don't like the beach. I have never liked the beach. I'm not a sand person. I will tiptoe out to the beach, take some really cute pictures, and then I tiptoe back off. The beach is not my thing. So that's what there is in Playa, and I didn't want that to be my life, like being in a place where I don't like the main amenity. So I was like, I want to try out Mexico City. I've heard that Mexico City, or had heard at the time that Mexico City was kind of comparable to New York and just like a really big city. So I was like, let me go. So y'all, I literally packed up my stuff and put myself on a bus and rode 21 hours to Mexico City. I don't know why I did that, honestly, because people were like, why did you just fly? A part of me wanted to see, like, I've been, a part of me being here is really because I want to understand what life is like for Mexican people. These are our neighbors to the south, and I learned that there's so much propaganda that the U.S. tells us about Mexico and Mexican people, and I'm a little bit rebellious, so I was like, I want to see if what they're talking about is real, you know? So anyway, so when I was thinking about getting to Mexico City, I was like, I'm gonna ride the bus like Mexican people do, and I'm gonna see what it's like, right? But I didn't hardly speak any Espanol at the time. So I remember getting to the bus station and I was telling the guy there like that I needed help, and I showed him my ticket, you know, so I'm like, I'm going to Mexico City. So he's like, okay, you know, have a seat. And at the bus station, like when I had booked the ticket, it said like to be on the platform 30 minutes in advance or something like that. So I'm on the platform, or I'm looking at the platform because I'm sitting in the lobby, and buses continue to pull up, but this guy told me to have a seat, right? So I'm sitting there, but like every 5 minutes I'll be like, is that my bus? Like, is that my bus? It wasn't my bus. So he got tired of me asking about the buses, so he allowed me to go out to the platform, but I wound up waiting some more time because it wasn't time for me to get on the bus. So he came over to me and he said something to the effect of he was like, it was a lot more comfortable inside or something like that. So I was like, touche, you right. But anyway, so when the bus did finally get there, this gentleman like took me to the bus driver, and he was like, look at her, she's going to Mexico City, like make sure that she gets to Mexico City. So on that 21-hour bus ride, every time that we would stop, the bus driver was looking for me like, okay, señora, la Ciudad de Mexico. And I was like, see. So they got me to Mexico City. So I got to Mexico City in December of 2020, fell in love. Like, I was like, oh my gosh, this is my place. I love it here. I'm able to practice my Spanish. It's really amazing, right? So that's how I got here to Mexico City, and that's what kind of the ride, if you will, was like getting there. So I'll have to do, like, one day I'll have to do a live about all of the snafus, if you will, that come up in this expat life, because y'all, there have been so many, and you just like kind of power through. But anyway, today I really wanted to talk about the why of why I decided to move to Mexico. So I was living in Florida. So I was living in Tampa for I don't know, like 16 years. And for those of you that have been following me a while, you may have remembered a series of lives that I did. It was like right when COVID was getting started. Yes, Tasha, I said 21 hours. But it was right when COVID was getting started, and it was in the middle of all of the Black Lives Matter protests and all that kind of stuff. And for any of you, a few of y'all on here are in Florida, and you know Florida is stone cold nuts. So something in my spirit was like, you've got to get out of Florida, right? So at the time, I really didn't know where I was going. I didn't know what that meant. I was just kind of like, I know I need to get out of Florida. Like, I can't do this anymore. Like, this is really crazy. So I, sold my stuff and I went up north. So I landed in Boston, and Boston is one of my landing places that I have, that I can go and kind of get my life together for a minute. So I landed in Boston, and see, Kim, yeah, Florida's trash. But anyway, so I landed in Boston, and I had been applying for jobs, right? So, and the part two of all of this, of me telling you all why I wasn't employed, because I had been unemployed from November of 2019 until August of 2020, right? And had been actively looking for a job. COVID had happened, like all of that, but I was unemployed. So that'll be part two. I have to tell y'all about that. But anyway, so I didn't have a job. So I had been applying to jobs, and one of the jobs that I had applied to was to work on behalf of the Department of Education in Pennsylvania. So I had applied for this position, and there was a lady that was there, a Black lady. Her name is Portia, and she was there in the interview. And Portia called me after the interview a couple days later, and she was like, listen, that job that you applied for is probably not going to be what you think it is. So what if we created a position for you that will allow you to use your skill set, allow you to really be able to advocate for schools and children like you want to? Like, what if we created a position? So I'm like, yes, sis. And what was so funny is she grew up in St. Pete, right? So we had a conversation about how I was in Tampa, blah, blah, whatever. So they wind up creating this position. So I moved to Pennsylvania to work on behalf of the Department of Education as a school improvement specialist, focusing in school climate and culture. So working with schools that are historically failing and helping those schools to have a positive climate and a positive culture. So I started that job in August of 2020, right? So I'm super excited because all the shenanigans that have been happening in Tampa that I'll tell y'all about in part two, it was elevation, right? So I was going from this district position to a statewide position. I was going from a district position to working on behalf of the Department of Education. So I was like, yes, like this has my name written all over it. I'm going to be able to talk about the things that are important to me. So thinking about social emotional learning and restorative practices, and again, advocating for Black and brown kids. So, all right, I'm signed up. Within 2 weeks, I was like, something ain't right. Something ain't right. So one thing that I can appreciate about Hillsborough County when I was there, I can't speak to Hillsborough County Public Schools now, but Hillsborough County Public Schools, when I was there, I worked with professional development. I was a professional development facilitator, and a lot of the work that I did was surrounding equity and bias and really helping people to understand what those terms mean, helping people to understand how to navigate those spaces. So here I am. Now I'm on a state level in Pennsylvania. This is the other thing. I grew up in New Orleans, y'all. The farthest north I had been to this point as far as living was Tennessee, because I went to Fisk. And I didn't know anything about Pennsylvania, and I should have done my research, but I did not. I was happy to have a job. So I get to Pennsylvania. I'm working for the job, and within 2 weeks, I'm like, something ain't right. These people they don't know what equity really means. Like, there were so many instances that were happening where problematic language was being allowed, damaging behaviors towards students, towards oh, thank you. Towards students, towards families, and even towards myself. Like, and I was kind of like, wow. Like, there was this principal that I was talking to within those first couple weeks, and I was asking the principal about social emotional learning, this white man. And I was like, what is your understanding of social emotional learning, and how are you all using it as adults? And he was like, I don't know, I don't know what you're talking about. So I'm like, okay, no problem. So I rephrased the question, right? And he was offended by my question because he didn't know what that meant. So here I am, this black woman showing up in this white space, challenging this white man who is responsible for all these black and brown kids, where he has all of this bias. And he felt some type of way that I was asking him about his usage of the things that were in his school improvement plan. So he asked me who I thought I was. He was like, who do you think you are? Judge Amy Coney Barrett? And which was very confusing because, like, what? So I was just kind of like, no, we're not doing that, right? But that was in the first 2 weeks that I was in this job. So I was really like, okay, this is hostile territory. Like, I can see that, people here are not progressive like we were told down south growing up in New Orleans. The message was always, oh, people in the north are so progressive, and it's such a good place for black people. Lies. Okay, lies. So when that happened, I was shocked that none of my colleagues spoke up. None of my colleagues said anything. Like, they just kind of, see, Kim, yes, PA is as trash as Florida. I would not wish Pennsylvania on my worst enemy in real life. Like, sorry if someone is offended, but I said what I said and I meant what I said. So anyway, so I was really taken aback at the culture that I was experiencing within the system that I was working in for the Department of Education, right? The other thing was, there was a culture shock, if you will, from coming from Florida, where when the state says to do something in Florida, like, they say jump, you ask how high. Like, but in Pennsylvania, they have this concept of local control, and local control basically means that the school boards or the districts run things, and that the state really has no control, right? So here I am thinking I'm going into this position where I'm about to make, such a huge impact, because I'm going to be working on behalf of the Department of Education, and no, like, that wasn't it at all. So I was really trying to understand, like, what the culture was and what the dynamics were in Pennsylvania, as well as in the Department of Education. Now, side note. So in this system that I was working in, I'm being very intentional about calling it a system, because there are, so I'm going to try to make it plain for those of you who are on, hey Chantel, for those of you who are on that are not in education. So you have your school board, right? Or you have your school district. Your school district is managed or run, if you will, by the school board, right? Then if you're in a place like Florida or Louisiana, then you have the Department of Education, and the Department of Education is the state, and they're in charge of all the things, right? And then you have the federal Department of Education, which tells the state Department of Education what to do. Well, in Pennsylvania, they have this extra layer that's called an intermediate unit. And the intermediate unit is the intermediary between the local school district and school board and the Department of Education, which is the state. So I was technically hired by an intermediate unit, even though I was working on behalf of the Department of Education, because it was a grant and it was the way that they wrote the grant and all this kind of stuff. So had to figure that out. But at the core of it all, I was really just thinking that these people that I'm working with, and mind you, y'all, so I have a master's in education. I'm still kind of undecided on whether I'm going to get my doctorate or whatever, but at any rate, I know what I'm talking about. And I know what I'm talking about because I've done this for almost 20 years now. So, as I'm in rooms with people that are former superintendents, former directors of X, Y, and Z, you know, directors of curriculum and blah, 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 like doctor this, doctor that, right? So here I go. I show up with my, you know, bold self, with my little masters, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm the smartest person in the room. These people do not know what they are talking about. They have no understanding of what it really means to advocate for these schools. And again, I was working in school improvement. So these are schools that are historically failing, that are filled with black and brown children, that are filled with poor children, right? So as I'm watching how they're moving, I'm listening to the types of questions they're asking. I'm listening to the type of questions they're not asking. I'm watching the behaviors that they're allowing, the behaviors that they're not allowing. And I'm saying to myself, this ain't how this is supposed to work. Like, this is not it. So I went to my supervisor at the time, and her name is Jana, and I'm just going to use names for the sake of clarity, right? And because I feel like calling people out. And, you know, I'm going to say a caveat to this is I'm going to take this and put this on YouTube, but I'm also going to put some additional receipts within it so that you all can really see what I was talking about. So anyway, so I go to Jana, my supervisor, right? And I'm like, so this equity thing. Right. I hear us using the language. However, I see that the things that we are doing are not equitable. So help me understand what training has happened before I got here. So I was hired later than a lot of people. So they supposedly had this Equity Institute over the summer and all of this. And I was like, clearly somebody missed something because y'all don't know what equity is. Like, I know what equity is, but y'all do not. So, she was very dismissive of what I was saying and was kind of like, well, you know, you tell me, you know, what equity is. She's a white lady. So, you tell me, you know, what equity is or something, she said. And I was like, well, everything can fall under equity, right? So we're talking about how we communicate with parents. Are they able to access things in their own language? Are we using language that is empowering and strength-based, or are we talking to, you know, biases and stereotypes that are keeping this system in place? Like, so she was like, oh, well, if everything is equity, then that means we're doing equity, if everything is equity. And I was like, yeah, that's not how that works. That's no, like, that's not it, right? So that was my first red flag. Again, this was within 2 weeks of me being at this job. So a part of being in the position was we were getting this certification. So being a certified school improvement specialist, right? Which is not required, but, you know, whatever. It's another badge, like to say. So they introduced us to the ladies that are going to be facilitating our school improvement specialist certification. 3 older white ladies from Georgia. I immediately knew it was going to be a problem. Like, immediately. Everything in my spirit was like, these women have no understanding of the work that we're doing. They have no understanding of black and brown children, black and brown families. Like, this is not going to be good. To further underscore that, I'm me. Right. And I'm going to be me in whatever situation that I go into. And I already said, I am very confident in my skill set. I know that I know what I'm talking about. Right. So I have no problem challenging people who have positioned themselves to be an authority when you're wrong. Because when you're wrong, you're wrong. Okay? And I'm going to tell you about it, especially because we're talking about the lives of children that didn't sign up to be in these schools, that are failing with these administrators that are trash, right? So I'm like asking questions, I'm reframing and restating things, and the way that they received the information that I was giving, or the challenges, let me know that it was going to be a problem. They also were hyper focused just on me, period, right? So I have these yellow glasses that you all may have seen me wear, and at the time I would wear them every day. They were hyper focused on my glasses. They were hyper focused on my hair. They were hyper focused on all of the things that I say. No, what Kimberlyn said, what Kimberlyn said, what Kimberlyn said, right? Now, I don't mind people acknowledging my genius. But when it comes at the detriment of other people, I have a problem with that, because I'm not saying things in this space with these colleagues that, again, doctor this, doctor that, superintendent this, that, and whatever else. I'm saying what I'm saying to advocate for children. I'm not saying what I'm saying to try to grandstand and make it seem like I know all these things, even though I do. So they would say things like, they just kept saying my name. Like, frankly, I was like, I'm tired of y'all saying my damn name. I'm sick of it. Like, stop saying my name. So I stopped, I changed the way that I was interacting in those spaces. So I wound up changing my glasses. Instead of wearing my yellow glasses, I wore my tortoiseshell glasses. Instead of making comments out loud, I would just make comments in the chat. But it didn't change anything, right? They just continued to hyper fixate on me. So there were about maybe 30, I'm gonna say like 34 of us that were in this system. Of the 34 of us, there were, let me see, it was Carmen, Rose, Jenny, me, Reggie, Jenna, Stacy, Amber. Okay, so there were like 8 of us that were Black. So, I was just noticing, right? This is what I do, right? So I'm just noticing the interactions with the Black people versus the white people. And when we would say things, it was like, oh my God, like they just didn't expect us to have any type of intelligence. Like, we're just here in this space working for the Department of Education, apparently on some type of affirmative action or something, right? So I started noticing that. So I spoke to my supervisor, again, that same supervisor, Jonna, that I had told that people don't know what equity is and all this kind of stuff. So I go to my supervisor, and at this point, I want to say it was about October. So again, I started with them in August, so this is about October. I go to my supervisor and I'm like, listen, Jonna, this is what my experience is within this certification course that you're having us take. I talked to her about the hyperfixation. I talked to her about the microaggressions that were happening. And it wasn't just me. Like, I also talked about the things that were happening to other Black people that were in the space. She tells me, oh, it's just because they're Southern. Ma'am, I'm from New Orleans. Like, you telling me that they're Southern is a complete dismissal of what I'm saying, because I'm from the South. So I don't know, like, how you thought that was, oh, they're just like, what? So I remember taking note of that, and I remember being like, okay, this is probably not going to end well, because I know myself. And one thing about Kimberlyn Jackson, I'm going to say what got to be said. I'm going to say it loud and unapologetically. I'm going to say what needs to be said, right? So when that happened, I was like, oh yeah, they're not going to like this because I'm me. So I had shared that with her. Then some of my colleagues, some of my white colleagues reached out to me, and they were like, Kimberlyn, like, the way that they're treating you in this space is making me uncomfortable. White people, they was uncomfortable. So that's when, because at first there's like this gaslighting that happens, and any of you all that have experienced microaggressions before, they're called microaggressions because they are seemingly small. They're seemingly small things that are happening, but they have a major impact and they build up, right? So it's like it was so much, like it was just so much that was happening that I was like, I need this to be understood. So when my colleagues came to me, because I was telling myself, I was like, maybe I'm tripping, like maybe I'm just being extra, and I can be real militant, right? I graduated from Fisk University, so I can be real militant sometimes. So I'm like, maybe I'm just being extra and hypersensitive. But when my white colleagues started coming to me, and they were like, I feel some type of way about how they're treating you, like, then I knew I wasn't crazy. So one of my lights just went out. I'm gonna plug it back in. But so that was happening. So I go to after that happens, I'm kind of like trying to process what's going on, because something else that I don't mind is rolling the hell up out of some place that ain't for me. Okay. So as I'm like paying attention to this, I'm thinking to myself, I literally picked up my entire life to move here to Pennsylvania thinking this is going to be for 3 years. I ain't going to make it. I am not going to make it, because Lord, I just dropped everything I was trying to get. I was like, I'm not going to make it, because I know that I'm not going to excuse their behavior. And it's very clear that they're going to continue in their behavior, and I am not okay with that. So I really need to be thinking about what this is going to look like. But a part of me was very aggravated and frustrated because I had literally just picked up my life to move to Pennsylvania. So I'm like thinking to myself, I just picked up all of it. I don't feel like moving again. Like if y'all moved anytime recently, it's a lie. So I was like, I don't feel like moving again, so I'm trying to make it work, and I'm trying to make it work. So I go and, hold on y'all, let me fix my light. So I'm trying to like process it and, talk to people and really help people to understand what's going on, and then also figure out what I'm going to do about this situation. So, one day we're in a meeting, and the lady who was the direct person for the Department of Education, she was in our meeting. So she's like, some kind of way things had come to her attention that stuff wasn't going right. So she started asking questions. Kimberlyn gonna be Kimberlyn. So I said, what I had to say. And I'm like, it'd be real nice if people understood what equity was. It would be real nice if we were committed to using destigmatizing language. Like, that would be real nice, right? So she wound up reaching out to me, and she was like, Kimberlyn, would you mind sharing your experience with me? And so her name is Rosemary, and then there's another lady named Kristen. So Rosemary was like, would you mind sharing your experience with me so that I can, understand what's really going on? Sure. So I scheduled time. I go to meet with them, and I shared with them what my experience was like. I talked to them about the microaggressions that I was experiencing, but then I also shared there was another lady that had come into our system, and they didn't even introduce this lady to us. She was a black lady, had her doctorate, very, very well versed in what she was doing. We're sitting in a meeting one day. I noticed a new face, and I private messaged her, and I was like, hey sis, right? Because I was the last person that was hired right before that. So I reach out because I know what it's like to be the new person in the room trying to figure out what the hell is going on. So I message, I'm like, hey sis, so good to see you. My name is Kimberlyn. Like, this is how you can get in touch with me. I would love, to answer any questions if you have it, blah, blah, blah. That's just how I am. But I also noticed that in this whole meeting, and there were 2 meetings, there was a meeting on Friday and there was a meeting on Monday. Neither one of those days did they introduce this new lady to the team. So I'm like, So now we just acting like people don't exist. Like we just sit here acting like people are invisible. Like what is that? So I wind up speaking to the lady, my colleague, and she shares with me what her experience was like, which was even worse than mine. She was sitting in meetings where they were telling her that she couldn't talk. I just told you she got a doctorate. They told her she couldn't talk in the meeting. She was not allowed to talk in meetings. They were telling her things like, the documents and things that she was preparing weren't up to their standard. Like it was just very insulting at this level for someone excuse me, for someone who is working at this level, at the state level. So I'm sitting on the phone with her one day for like 2 hours. She is crying her heart out about the things that are happening to her, right? So I'm more so trying to support her and talk to her, like validate her, be intentional about listening to her because she felt like she wasn't being heard. Like it was just a lot going on. So when Rosemary asked me to speak, I also shared pieces of her experience. So in that meeting, everybody was shocked, right? So it was Rosemary and the lady Kristen. They're both like, oh my God, this is not who we are. All of this. And to Sonia's point, white women. And let me say this, there are two types of white women. There are white women and there are women who happen to be white. There's a very big difference between white women and women who happen to be white. White women have no understanding of their whiteness. They weaponize their whiteness. They position themselves in spaces that they don't belong in and have no right to speak in comparison to women who happen to be white, who understand that they are white. They understand the privilege that comes with that, and they are committing themselves to eradicating the programming that they've received about their whiteness, right? So, at any rate, these are white women. No concept of their whiteness. So I'm telling them, what's going on. They're crying. Oh my God, we're so sorry that happened to you. Blah, 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 blah. So I'm like, okay, I appreciate that, but it's happening, right? So they asked me if I would talk to my colleague and if my colleague would be willing to share her story about how she was being treated, how they didn't introduce her, blah, blah, whatever. So I go to her and I'm like, would you be willing to share? I'll be there with you if you want me to be there with you, but I do think it's important for this to go on record somewhere as saying that this is what's happening. So we have a meeting. She shares her experience. I'm in the meeting with her for moral support, what have you. Well, after that meeting, maybe about a week later, I get an email from HR. Now, I had never asked to speak to HR. I just shared my concerns and wanted it to be fixed, right? But I had never reported anything to HR. So I get an email from HR and I'm thinking to myself, who felt like they needed to get HR involved? Because if you all know anything about HR is not there on the behalf of the workers. HR is there to protect the company from a lawsuit. And I know this, right? So I get an email from HR. So by this time, it's probably about December of 2021. So I get an email from HR and they're asking me, basically, when can we schedule a meeting for you to tell us what you told them in the other meeting? So I was like, excuse me, I have questions like who even called for you? Because I didn't send for you. So who sent for you? Like what's happening? Whatever. Well, it turns out Kristen, the other person that was in that room, Kristen Leewald, she had called HR and told HR that they needed to contact me. So then I had a decision to make, right? Because I'm like, do I actually share what has happened with HR, or do I just go ahead on about my black ass business? Well, I decided that I was going to share what happened with HR. So I have a meeting with HR. I share with HR everything that had occurred, and it was a laundry list, y'all, like a laundry list of things that had happened. And they were like, okay, you know, I told them about my supervisor, Jonna, how she had dismissed my concerns, told me that, you know, the microaggressions were just because the ladies were Southern. Like, I shared all of these things. So they wind up taking the report, but then I don't hear anything back, right? Exactly, Sonia. Can't have a black woman stirring up trouble. So they had to neutralize my ass, right? So I didn't hear anything back from them. I want to say I talked to them maybe like December 14th or something like that. So I didn't hear anything back from them for a week or so. So I reach out like, so now what? You know, type of thing. Like I told y'all what I had to say. I've shared what happened, like what's supposed to happen now. So they're like, oh, you know, we're investigating and, you know, all of this. So now we go to winter break. We come back. It's January now. I get a call from HR, and basically it wasn't a call. It was a email. So the email, I'm going to say, let's say it's January 11th. Let's just say. The email said, when can you meet with us on January 14th? These are the times that we have available. When can you meet with us? Then there was another email that was like, matter of fact, just meet with us between this time. Like, we need to meet with you at this time. So to me, it felt very like, why are y'all like calling me and telling me, like, what is this about when I haven't let the gaslighting begin? When I didn't even send for y'all. Y'all didn't even respond to me about this investigation that you're doing. Now all of a sudden you're demanding for me to be somewhere 2 days from now. Like, I'm not working, right? I'm working. So I don't know why you think I just have this free calendar to just show up at this meeting. So I didn't feel comfortable going to the meeting by myself, so I called Portia. So Portia is the lady that's from St. Pete that had created this position for me and advocated for this position to be created. So I called Portia. I asked Portia if she'll come to the meeting with me. Goes to the meeting, and I tell them about themselves. I had written an entire statement about how the way that they handled my complaints, the way that they, you know, just sent me this email and told me I need to be here at a particular time and place. I don't know if I'm about to get fired. I don't know what's about to happen. Like, how insensitive it was for me as a person who was harmed to now be in this situation of having all these questions. Why the hell did the HR director start crying? So that's how I'm sitting there looking at her. Like, because what the hell is you crying for? Well, you know, we never meant for it to be, and we're still learning about, ain't none of that my problem. You feel me? None of that is my problem, that you are not aware of how your actions are affecting me. That is not my problem. That is your work to do, right? So, okay, so now we still in the meeting. She crying, you know, she got to turn her camera off, get herself together, all this kind of stuff. Y'all, let me tell you how they wanted to fix the issue. They told me that I needed, so they acknowledged that my supervisor needed to have some cultural sensitivity training, basically. Then they tell me I need to go with her. Excuse me? I don't need cultural sensitivity training. I am not going to anything with the person who has harmed me consistently. I'm not doing that. They could not understand why I said I'm not going to no cultural sensitivity training with this lady that you all have placed in position to supervise me, who is actively launching microaggressions, macroaggressions, and everything else. I'm not doing it. They couldn't understand. Well, how are you going to repair the relationship? It's not my problem to repair the relationship. The burden of proof, or the burden of repairing that relationship, is on her. She broke the relationship. I didn't do anything but ask questions about stuff that y'all should already know about. Pause on that. So all of that's happening, right? Meanwhile, I'm still trying to live my life. Okay? So what I was noticing at this point, and again, this is like December, January of 2021, I am in crisis, right? I am barely able to get up to go to work. and mind you, I'm working from home, right? So I'm barely able to get out the bed and go downstairs to the freaking computer. I had started having a lot of issues typing. So I took keyboarding when I was in 9th grade. Like, I knows how to type. I was having difficulty typing. I also had developed a stutter, which was extremely alarming to me because, as you see, I don't have a problem communicating. I don't have speech impediments. Like, my brain to mouth pathway is very much intact. And I had started stuttering, and I was like, I'm not okay. So one day I'm standing, so the place I was living in, it was a loft, and it was 3 levels. So the first level was like living room and kitchen, and then the second level was the office, and then the third level was my bedroom and the bathroom. So I was standing looking over the banister on the 3rd floor and just thinking, right? The place I was in had wood floors. I am very clumsy, very clumsy. So I had already fallen or slipped down the stairs one day after I had left one of them stupid behind certification classes or whatever. So I had already slipped down the stairs. So I said to myself as I was standing there, I was like, if I were to fall over this banister, because the banisters were also pretty low, and again, I'm clumsy. So I was thinking to myself, if I were to fall over this banister, it could be weeks before anybody knows that I'm dead. I'm working from home, so I'm not going to an office. A lot of my meetings were just me and the school district or the superintendent or whomever. So if I didn't show up, people would wonder, but it would be a while before an alarm would be rung, like, oh my gosh, where's Kimberly? And that thought scared the ish out of me. Like, and it wasn't that I was suicidal, like I didn't feel like I was going to jump, but I was very much like, why is this thought even coming to my head? Like, what is going on? So I remember reaching out to my sorority sisters and my cousin. To my sorority sisters, I just put a message in the group and I was like, y'all, I'm not okay. Like, I don't care what Instagram says or whatever. I am not okay. Like, I need y'all to pray for me. Like, I need y'all to pray for me. And then I messaged my cousin and I told her the same thing. So my cousin wound up calling me, and one of my line sisters who is a physician. And, both of them are like, what's going on? Because up until this point, I hadn't really shared what was happening outside of the other Black women that I worked with who were also experiencing the same type of hostile work environment. So, when I talked to my cousin, I had an opportunity to kind of cry it out. Like, she's my person. And we, have connected spirits. So she got it. Like, I didn't have to do extra explaining, whatever. She just wanted me to be okay. So at that point, I was like, I know that I need to leave here, and I don't know where I'm going to go. So she said to me, you know that my door is always open. You know what I mean? You show up whatever day. It's a code on the door. You don't even need a key. Like, just show up. If you feel like you need to leave, you need to come, just come, right? So then my line sister, who's a physician, called me, and she was like, what's going on? So I'm explaining to her what's happening and just telling her I'm not okay. I'm like, I'm just not okay. And I know I'm not okay. I'm like, I'm crying at the drop of a hat. I'm stuttering. Like, I can't function. I'm showing up to work maybe operating at 20% of my capacity, which, side note, is so crazy because these people that I was working with didn't even know that, because my 20% capacity was more than their 100% capacity. Okay. So I'm explaining to my line sister what's happening. So, and I have been trying to get a counselor, a therapist, but Pennsylvania's so ass backwards that they're telling me there wasn't like a website that I could go to and just find, like for your EAP services and all that. You go to a website, you choose a therapist, and you keep it pushing. Like, they were giving me phone numbers. Like, you need to call so-and-so's office and find out if they're accepting new patients. So, like, I'm in crisis right now. Like, I don't have time or mental ability to be able to do any of this. So Tamika, my line sister, she was like, give me your medical insurance information. Give me your information. I'm going to help you find a doctor, and I'm going to help you find a therapist. So the other thing she said, she was like, Kim, you really might need medicine. And what was so interesting about that is I have been very like anti-medicine. First of all, I have a problem swallowing pills. I don't do a good job with it. I've choked before. When I was in college, like one of my friends had to do the Heimlich maneuver to save my life. So I'm very cautious about pills, but my memory sucks, y'all. I don't be remembering to wake up and take pills every day. I just don't. I don't want to do it. Even when I was taking birth control pills, I never remembered. I would be taking 2 at a time. Like, it was a mess. So I was telling her, I was like, I don't really want to be on medicine. And, I feel like I should be able to manage my life without having to be on medicine. So she was like, listen, your brain is tired. She's like, your brain has been trying to help you, but your brain is tired. Like, you need to give your brain some help. And just because you take medicine for a while doesn't mean you have to stay on medicine, but I need you to do what you need to do to be in a place to be better. So I'm like, okay, fine. So she told me about that. So then, see, Tasha, yeah. So then, what I also didn't realize is that your primary care physician can actually give you a prescription for anti-anxiety or anti-depression medicine. I didn't know that. I thought that you had to go to a psychologist. So that was another thing that I was trying to navigate, because again, and one of my things was I didn't want to talk to a therapist who was white. I don't want to have to explain to my therapist what microaggressions are. I don't want to have to explain to my therapist why I feel some type of way about the hyperfixation. Like, I don't want to have to do that. So it was really difficult for me to find a black therapist. So Tamika was like, listen, we're going to find you a black doctor. That's what we're going to worry about first. Your doctor can give you the medicine that you need, and then we can work on the therapist. So I'm like, praise the Lord. Okay, cool. So I find a doctor. Get to the doctor, and they give you this questionnaire. So you have to fill out the questionnaire, and I don't really remember the questions, but the questions are something to the effect of, how many days do you wake up, or how many days is it difficult for you to wake up? Or it's difficult for you to wake up sometimes, often, frequently, blah, blah, never, whatever. So as I'm filling out the questionnaire, all of my responses are like far on the right side of crisis, right? It was like every day, all the time, every day, right? So, so I'm filling that out. So I give the questionnaire to the nurse. So the doctor comes in, and she's like, and mind you, y'all, I'm sitting in the doctor's office, and I'm like bouncing my leg and like wringing my hands the whole time, right? Which again, I am not like a anxious and nervous person, especially when it comes to stuff about work. Like, I've never been that person to take work home with me like that. So that's already tripping me out, right? So the doctor gets in the room, and she's like, what's going on? What's happening with you? And I was like, I'm stressed out. I was like, work is a lot, and, I'm struggling to get up, certain days, and, I'm really stressed out. So she said, okay. She said, well, let me look at, your questionnaire, right? Whatever it's called. So she pulls that up. She was in the process of pulling up, and she was like, she said, let me look at your questionnaire. And I said, oh, though it's high. Like, the numbers are high. So she was like, oh, high, like 16 high. And I don't know what the highest is. I'm going to say like the highest is, let's say 30. So she was like, highest like 16 high. So then she pulls it up, and she was like, oh, highest like 25 high. And she was like, baby, come have a seat over here. And y'all, I lost it. Like, lost it. Pause right there. Another time I lost it. So I told y'all that Tamika had reached out to me, and when she was telling me to give all of that information and stuff to her, so that she could help me, she also told me to call the crisis line that night. And I was like, Mika, you're being extra. I don't need to call the crisis line. I'm fine. Like, I'm not suicidal, Tamika. Like, I'm fine. So she's like, I want you to call the crisis line, and I just want you to share with them what you shared with me, right? So I did it because I knew she was going to ask me the next day, but not because I knew that I needed to do it, right? So I called the crisis line. I'm trying to explain to the lady, some white lady on the phone at the crisis center, and couldn't get it together. Like, I was crying for like 20 minutes. Like, I could not explain to her what was going on. And like I told you, I was stuttering by this time, so I had a really bad stutter. I was trying to get my thoughts together. Like, I just couldn't. So that had happened first. So then Tamika helped me get to the doctor. So now I'm at the doctor. So the same thing is happening. And I'm trying to explain to her. I can't explain. I'm stuttering. Like, so she's like, okay. So I said, you know, my friend told me that I probably need to have medicine. And y'all, this is how out of it I was. I said, my friend told me I probably need to have medicine. And so I wanted to talk to you about that. And she was like, okay. She said, well, what medicines did you talk about, you know, with your friend? Because I told her she was a doctor. And she was like, I said, I can't remember what they were called. And she said, well, do you want to look in your phone? Like, I couldn't even think to go to my phone to look at the text message that Tamika had sent me about the medicines. Like, that's how much in crisis I was. So anyway, so the doctor winds up prescribing me medication. Sandra, this is only part of the story, like, which is so crazy, y'all. Like, this is just part of the story. And to the point of me sharing this is that what I've grown to understand in this process is that there are so many people that are going through this that feel embarrassed and shameful. So I want to be able to help people by sharing what happened to me so that people will feel more comfortable in seeking help. Because this kind of stuff is happening to so many people. I wish I could show you all the messages that I get from people, just from posts that I've made that aren't even giving all of the details that I'm giving you here about people that are going through these situations. So anyway, so my doctor gives me the medicine, and I take the medicine. The very next day, I'm sitting in a meeting, and I want to say I took the medicine at, let's say, like 10 a.m. And probably about 1 p.m., I noticed that I was typing. Like, I was typing, right? And I had been struggling with typing, y'all, for months. So I was like, damn, this medicine is really working. Like, oh my God, right? I am actually functioning right now. So that was like a saving grace, right? So I get on the medicine, and when my doctor told me, she was like, girl, when you take this medicine, you ain't gonna give a damn what them white people talking about. She was like, they ain't gonna be vexing your nerves no more. She was like, when you take this medicine, you gonna be good to go. And she said, and if you realize that you do still care, then we're gonna up the dosage until you don't care. Because what they not gonna be able to do is break your spirit. And that resonated with me in a way that gave me all of the comforts of understanding that I wasn't crazy, and understanding that what I was experiencing needed to be told, and it needed to be talked about, right? So I get on the medicine, but stuff is still crazy at work, right? And they still trying to do all this stuff. So by this time, it's maybe January, February, let's say, of 2021. So I finally got a therapist. At this point, y'all, I had 3 therapists, y'all, because so there's this resource called therapy. What's it called? It's called Dark Beauty Healing. DRK Beauty, the word beauty healing. And Dark Beauty Healing is a website where the mental health professionals are able to offer their services free of charge. So you find a mental health professional in your state, you reach out to them, and you let them know, that you found them on Dark Beauty Healing, and they give you 5 or 6 sessions for free. So I had reached out to a therapist through Dark Beauty Healing, and she wasn't able to help me, so she referred me to someone else. This therapist, her name is Tyra, and Tyra was like, I need to message her. She was like my saving grace. Yeah, can somebody type that into the comments for me, please? Dark Beauty Healing is DRK, the word beauty, and then healing.com. If somebody can type that into the comments for me, that I appreciate that. But I will go back and put it in the description afterwards. But at any rate, so Tyra takes me in. I'm explaining to her what's going on, and she was like, okay, like, we in this, like, I got you, we in this together. So I start that work. Then I was able to get my EAP services. So I get another, thank you, Sonia, I get another therapist named Allison. And Allison, I'm working with her, right? Thanks, darkbeautyhealing.org. Thank you for that. So I started working with Allison. Then I get a third therapist that I really wanted to work with. Her name is Dr. Botwin, and she extended a level of empathy that I have never experienced in my entire life. So I had these 3 therapists that I'm working with. I'm taking my medicine. I done gone to the doctor, but it's just still crazy at work. So by this time, I've already decided that I'm going to leave. I'm like, I'm not going to do this. So let me try to crunch some numbers and see how long it'll take, for me to wrap up what I need to wrap up, because I'm not doing this. So I had decided I was going to resign at the beginning of May. So in the meantime, my doctor is constantly checking on me, and she's like, you need to take some time off of work. And I was like, okay, but I have this stuff I need to do, and I have this stuff. So she was like, I'm giving you 2 weeks. And she said, in 2 weeks, you need to get back in here, and I'm going to see you. And she said, and if you're not 100%, you are going to take some time off of work. So I was like, okay, fine. So then I'm talking to my friend Lewis, and I'm telling him what's going on. And I'm like, this has been so traumatic. I'm going to take this time off of work. So he was like, well, I feel like you need to leave your house because you work from home. So the trauma that you're experiencing is still there. So I feel like you need to leave. So then I was like, well, where would I go? I don't know where to go. So he was like, idea. What if you go to Medellin, Colombia? That's his safe place. That's one of his places that he loves to be. He was like, what if you go to Medellin? And, I know people there. So if, you need something, you can always reach out. Somebody can get to you. But I really think you need to get away from Pennsylvania and away from the U.S. So I'm like, okay. And I had just turned 40 in February, and I had said to myself that I wanted to do something that would scare me this year. I wanted to be bolder, and, I wanted to do something else. So I decide that I'm going to take a solo trip to Medellin, Colombia. So I get to Medellin, and I have to tell y'all about the arrival story in Medellin. Was crazy. I thought I was getting abducted and all kind of stuff, but none of that happened. It was actually very amazing. But while I was there, I decided to go on a tour, on a graffiti tour on Airbnb. One day, I'm just like, I'm going to go on this tour. So I get on the tour, and I meet these 2 black women that were on the tour as well. And there was another black lady that joined us later. So we get there, and I'm, talking to them about whatever. Well, it turns out 2 of them were Delta, so I'm a Delta as well. So we had that connection. The other lady was a Zeta, and these ladies lived in Medellin. So I was like, how? how are you doing this? Like, how? So, why? Like, talk to me. So granted, they were about 10 years younger than me, but they were like, girl, why not? Like, why are you sitting in the States being subjected to all of the foolishness when you could be out here frolicking across the world? So I was like, you know what? You're right. You are so right. I'm moving to Medellin. Like, while I was like, y'all, when I get back, I'm packing my stuff and I'm moving to Medellin. So I get back from my trip. I talk to my therapist, Tyra, and I say, Tyra, I'm moving to Medellin. So Tyra's like, okay, I guess you had a really good trip. So I'm like, yeah, like, I can't continue to do this work that I care about, right? This equity work, this advocacy for our children, this advocacy for Black women, while being within a system that is continuing to oppress me. I can't do it. I love the work that I get to do. I love that I get to call white people out on their whiteness and call them into a different way of existing in the world. I love being able to awaken other Black people who think that they are culturally proficient but don't realize how much we have been colonized and how much our thought patterns and our actions have been driven by systemic racism. I love that work that I get to do. But I can't do that if I'm in the States. So I made the decision in April of 2021 that I was going to leave. Well, I told y'all earlier, COVID numbers were rising in Medellin and in Colombia in general. So that's how I wound up choosing Mexico, left for Mexico in October of 2021. So having said all of that, back to the job. So they still on the foolishness. Like, so by April of that year, they had created this narrative that I was a bully, that I was making people do things that they didn't want to do. I was creating a hostile work environment. I was the problem, right? So, and all of this stuff is getting back to me, you know, and that's cool. So I wound up taking legal action. Because y'all got me effed up. I don't know what y'all think this is or who you think I am. But I believe in calling people out on their BS. And I believe in holding people accountable for their foolishness. Y'all got me effed up. So I took legal action. Well, of course, they felt some type of way about that, right? But now they can't fire me because I've taken legal action. And that would be a direct retaliation. So what did they do? They laid everybody off. Everybody. The entire system laid us all off. So that was fine with me because I was leaving anyway. So I didn't give a good goddamn. But I had said I was going to leave at the end of May, right? Or at the beginning of May. But since y'all going to lay us off, then I might as well just say to y'all lay us off. Because guess what? Now your girl can collect unemployment. Appreciate you, right? So that was cool. So they kept on with their narratives and all that kind of stuff and wound up laying us off. So let me go back to January 6th, 2021, the day of the insurrection. So I had a meeting with a school, and I actually was meeting with school administrators and the superintendent and assistant superintendent of the school district. And I want to say stuff started popping off maybe about 1 p.m., if I'm not mistaken. So I'm sitting in this meeting, and I'm talking to these people about this equity initiative and all this kind of stuff that they're getting started. And I start getting alerts on my phone from CNN about the insurrection. So we wind up getting off the call because everybody's like, what the hell is going on? So we get off the call, and I'm sitting in front of my TV like everybody else, like, WTF, like, y'all got to be kidding me right now that these people are out here doing this. So that was, I think that was like a Tuesday, maybe. That next day, I had a meeting, and my friend Jenny, who she's a black woman, and she was kind of like in a supervisory role. So Jenny had a meeting, and Jenny acknowledged what was happening with the insurrection, and she was like, I know that it's a lot to process. Like, that was a lot. Like, this it was a lot. So she at least acknowledged it. Well, throughout the rest of that day, I had meetings with supervisors and people and all this kind of stuff. Didn't nobody say nothing. So I reach out to Rosemary and Kristen, because Rosemary, I told you, she was like with Department of Education, like the person, and then Kristen was the one who was in charge of our system. So I reached out to them and I was like, hey, so now would probably be a perfect time for you all to make a statement about where we stand on this insurrection that happened. Like, what are we even calling it? What resources are we providing to our schools and to our districts to help them navigate these conversations with their staff, with their families, with their children? Like, what are we doing with this? Honey, that white lady was mad at me. How dare my black ass challenge her on where they stand on the insurrection? So after a couple emails, she said something to me like, I think it's very clear where we stand. We stand for equity, or some kind of stupid phrase. I'm going to put it on my YouTube. I'm going to actually, when I do this for the YouTube, I'm going to actually pull up the receipts and show y'all so y'all can see what the foolery that was happening. So they were pissed at me about that. And that was in January. So by this time, again, they had started creating this narrative. Okay, so they lay us off. Well, now my schools are like, Kimberland, what are you going to do? You picked up your whole... Now, they have no idea about all this stuff that's been happening behind the scenes. I haven't shared any of that with them. I'm still showing up to work. I'm still having these meetings with them, working through my trauma, right? So they have no idea what's happening. So they were like, Kimberland, what are you going to do? Like, you picked up your whole life to move here to Pennsylvania, and like, now they've laid you off. Like, what are you going to do? So I was like, y'all, I don't know. I was like, I don't know, but I know that this work is important. So what they said to me was, well, guess what? We believe it's important as well. And we would love to continue working with you. So is there a way that we can just contract with you instead of going through the school improvement system? Can we just contract with you? So I'm like, but of course. That would absolutely be amazing. So while the white people thought that they were going to lay me off and get rid of me, right? What happened was they still hear my name because I'm still working with those schools. I'm still working with those school districts. And it's to the point that I'm getting paid upwards of $300 an hour to talk to these people about the things that I was talking to them about on one salary. And now I'm able to work minimal hours for what I'm worth in a space where y'all thought y'all was getting rid of me and y'all was about to silence me. So it just goes to show how when people think that they control your destiny and they think that they hold your life in their hands, that God is going to be God 24/7, right? And the word says, touch not my anointed. And I know that they didn't know who they was fooling with, okay? They didn't know. But guess what? They found out. They found out. So at any rate, there's still legal action being taken against that system, against the Department of Education, against all of those people that I named, because they do need to be held accountable. And even if there is no monetary gains or whatever, guess what? I'm putting you on blast, because you deserve to be on blast for the stuff that you did to me and the stuff that you did to these Black and brown children, the stuff that you did to these Black and brown families, right? So, to Sandra's point, I now have the ability to be able to be free from working a job where I have to listen to what somebody else says to do. I now have been blessed with the opportunity to consult when I feel like it, right? And when I don't, I don't. And earn what I'm worth. And it all was born out of this traumatic situation that I should have never had to encounter. But the fact that I did encounter it goes to show that there's always a light at the end of the tunnel, and that God is always, everything that we do is with purpose, right? So the freedom and peace that I feel on the other side of this, I couldn't see last year. I couldn't see when I decided that I was going to leave the country. I couldn't see it. I just knew I had to leave. And the faith part of that for me was, God gonna have to figure out how I'm gonna make a living. Like, God, Lord, you gonna have to do what you do, okay? Because I ain't got it. All right. So I'm gonna need you to put the people in place, put the contracts in place, put the things in place, so that I can live and thrive in the way that I'm supposed to. So that is the very long story, part one, of how I got to Mexico and why I moved to Mexico. So I don't know if y'all have questions, but feel free to drop those questions into the chat or into the question box or whatever, so that I can answer any of those questions that may come about. But I think what's most important for me to leave with you all is that you're not crazy, that what you're feeling is valid, that there are people who are on assignment out here to try to murder our spirits. There is an author, Bettina Love, and she talks about spirit murdering. And it's something that we do to children all the time. And we do it to each other. And it's really breaking somebody to the point where they can't even recognize themselves anymore. And that is what a lot of people's missions are, is to murder our spirits and get us to a place where we are so battered, bruised, and beaten down that we lose our voice, that we lose our power, and we lose our peace. And I know that it is supremely important for me to make sure that I'm always pushing people towards destiny and pushing people towards their purpose outside of this system that has been created to marginalize us and keep us in a place where we will never win. And for me, that was leaving the U.S. and moving to Mexico and moving to a different country, taking myself out of that system so that my spirit could be repaired, so that I'm able to talk to you about what happened without losing it, right? And even as I was sharing today, there were times that I kind of felt some feels because I haven't shared this story in its totality with much of anyone. And when people look at me, people think and see this very strong woman who is outspoken and who knows what she wants and who's bold enough to get up and, you know, go to a different country and bold enough to rock bright red hair and, you know, all of these things. And I spent a lot of time thinking I was the problem. And I'm not the problem. The system is the problem, right? So it's really important to me to be candid and transparent about everything that has happened, because the things that we're experiencing or the things that people experience in the United States, Black and brown people, it's real. It's real. And I want us to not allow people to gaslight us into thinking that we're crazy, because we're not. Come on, you won't break my soul. That's why that song speaks to me in a way that I can't even conceptualize, because that is what people try to do, is they try to break our soul. So I see there's a question. Yes, I will save this live. And also what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this onto my YouTube page. So if you all are new to this space, not necessarily new to me, but new to this space, Minding My Black Ass Business was born out of this trauma. Right? Because that's all I was trying to do, y'all. I was trying to mind my black ass business and help these children. That's it. That is it. That's all I wanted to do, right? And I was sleeping one day and it came to me in a dream, minding my black ass business. That's what I want for all of us to be able to do. For us to be able to skip through the streets, for us to be able to frolic freely and enjoy a peace that the U.S. will have us thinking that we can never have, that is very possible for us. So Minding My Black Ass Business was born out of that. So I really would appreciate for you all to follow me here on Instagram, follow me on Facebook, to follow my YouTube page, because I am going to be much more intentional. I promised myself while I was in the States and I was having my reverse culture shock that when I left, that I would do a much better job of sharing what happened to me and how I'm able to live in this space so that other people can find their freedom and find their voice as well. Our experiences are powerful and our testimonies are powerful. And when we grab hold of that and when we tell our story, nobody can hold our story over us, right? So, again, those of you that have been following me, y'all know I've shared about domestic violence. I've shared about my upbringing. I've shared about, I try to be very, very candid about the things that I've experienced, because I know that it's to help somebody else. And I know that the experiences that you all are having are to help others as well. We just have to get over the shame and the guilt that comes with us thinking that something is wrong with us, thinking that we're the problem, when in fact it's the system that we live in that's the problem. And the sooner that we can break out of that system and really start to decolonize our minds and really understand who God created us to be and the people that we're assigned to help, there are so many people that are going to be freer, because we're using our story to free other people. So, having said that, what I'm thinking about doing, and you all can tell me if this is something that speaks to your spirit, just within the past few days that I've been back in Mexico, I've received maybe 4 or 5 messages from people that are saying, I want to leave. Like, I do not want to continue to stay in this system. I'm broken. I need healing. Like, I just don't know where to start. I am a life coach, and in my life coaching, the main crux of my life coaching is for people to understand what their spiritual gifts are and how God designed us to be, so that we can understand how we're supposed to show up in the world and who we're supposed to show up for. So I haven't done a life coaching class in a while, just because I've been out here frolicking, y'all. I'm a professional frolicker now, y'all, in real life. Like, I really be out here skipping through the streets. Matter of fact, when I get off of here, I'm finna go skip at the park. But I want us to be free. So I know that there are some of us that are sitting here and you're like, oh my God, this is speaking to my spirit. I really need this. I really want this. I want to experience the peace. I want to be able to leave the U.S. I want to be able to live life on my own terms. I want my dollar to stretch farther. Like, there are some of you here that are thinking that. And I do. Sandra, I'm going to do that. I'm going to actually make me a professional frolicker shirt. And I'm gonna put it on Minding My Black Ass Business. Thank you for that, Sandra. I'm gonna do that today, actually. But yeah, so I know that there are some of you that are thinking to yourselves like, oh my gosh, I felt touched, I felt moved, I felt inspired about this story, and I really want to do something different. Or you may be asking yourself, I know that there's supposed to be more. It might not be you leaving out of the country. I feel like I'm doing an altar call right now. I'm really not. I promise I'm not. I promise I'm not. But you may be thinking to yourself, like, you don't know what your purpose is, and you're really trying to understand what your purpose is and how you're supposed to show up in the world. That's what my coaching is about. So if that is something that is speaking to your spirit and you're thinking to yourself, I really want to be able to do that, if you will send me a DM, so that, because I need to have, in order for it to make sense, I need to have about 12 people, because it's a lot to put out. But if you go to my website, KimberlyJackson.com, and you go to Discover Your Destiny, you can get a preview of what my life coaching curriculum looks like. But what I'm doing is I'm also working on a life coaching certification class. And my life coaching certification class, so there is no like oversight organization for life coaching. You can get certified through different avenues. You can get certified for $100. You can get certified for $10,000. It really is about the quality of the program and if it speaks to you. But what I want to do in my life coaching certification course that I'm working on is I want to equip people to be able to work with melanated people who have experienced racial trauma, because it's a completely different skill set to really be able to unpack your own racial trauma and then recognize and help other people through that. So what I need to know from you all is, one, do you want to sign up for coaching, like individual coaching for yourself? Is this something that you want to do to just understand who you are, how you should show up in the world? If you'll message me that. If you're like, I need more than that, like I want to be able to help other people, I want to be able to help other people be free, I want to help other people really experience the fullness of life the way that I do as a coach, then I would like to know that as well, so that I can just kind of get a sense of timeline and how much time needs to be dedicated to these two experiences. So if you will do that for me, I would really appreciate that. And then lastly, if y'all will tag people to this live, share the live, tell people about the live, because I know that just this piece, and I'm gonna say again, this was just a piece of what made me move to Mexico. If you will tag and share with people that may need to hear this, they may be in a place where they're broken, they may be in a place where they're experiencing a hostile work environment and they need to get out of it. I just want the word to get out to people so that they know that they're not alone and they're not crazy. So those are my calls to action, if you will. So again, if you are not already following me, I would love for you to follow me on Minding My Black Ass Business. It is a website. So you go to mindingmybblackassbusiness.com. That's where you'll find the merch. I currently have merch that says Minding My Black Ass Business, and then I also have a line that is called Black and Free. And I'm going to have a new line coming out probably next week called professional frolicker, because that's what I'm doing. So I would love your support, but most importantly, I would love for you all to share this message with others, because I know that there are people that are hurting and really want to be able to get out of that cycle of living in a constant state of fighting, in a constant state of trauma, in a constant state of feeling like you're never going to win and you're never going to get ahead. All right. So I'll hold for just a moment. If there are any other questions, please drop them into the comments. I do want to scroll back up through some of these comments, because y'all was having a real good conversation, child, while I was talking, and I couldn't even participate because I was sitting here running my mouth. But I do want to see some of the things that you all were talking about here in the comments, because I know that it was deep. So I see quite a few people talking about just feeling the feels, you know, being in tears and you know, just feeling this. And I appreciate you all for receiving my story. Yeah, this is the first time that I've ever shared the totality of that part, and again, it's still not all of it, but it's the first time I've ever shared those details. And I thank you all for being a safe and supportive place for me to put this out into the world, and a safe and supportive place to be able to help other people. So yeah, so message me if you want to participate in coaching, or if you feel like you want to be a life coach, or if you just appreciate the fact that I did this and you have something that's on your spirit that you want to share. I appreciate that as well. I never forsake those messages that I get when people are like, you are an inspiration, or you are a light, or what have you. Like, I don't take that lightly. I know that that is my mission in life, and I take it very, very seriously. So it is medicine to my soul when I know that what I've experienced and the words that I've spoken have helped someone. So yeah, so if any of that is speaking to you, please do reach out to me. I love you all so much, and I just really appreciate you hanging out with me for the past hour and a half as I have spilled my testimony onto your ears and your spirits. And I just appreciate you all uplifting me and continuing to uplift me as I am out here traveling. I do not know how long I'm going to be in Mexico this time. I do think I'm going to I'm going to go back to Colombia, and I'm also thinking about going to Thailand. So it's a lot to follow. It's a lot to follow on this journey, and it's achievable, y'all. It really is. I was talking to one of my sorority sisters yesterday, and I was getting, for some of y'all that don't know, I have a prophetic calling. I don't call myself a prophet or anything like that, but I do have a prophetic calling, and I know that God does speak to me and speak through me. But I was talking to her about her experiences, and she was trying to understand what I did and how I did it. And as I was talking to her, I was like, I can see it. Like, it's like God literally showed me her future, and I saw her operating in all this freedom and peace, but she can't see it, right? And that's what I encounter a lot. So I really want to be able to help people to see that this is for you, and if you want it to be, and that it is achievable, and it's not nearly as hard as you think. So first step is make sure you have a passport. That's probably the hardest part. Make sure you have a passport, and after that, it is like almost smooth sailing from then. So let's see another question. How does the passport visa work? Is there only a limited time you can stay in one place? Good question. So It depends on where you go. So, for instance, in Mexico, you can get up to 180 days on a tourist visa. It's not something that you have to apply for ahead of time. You literally just show up with your passport. And when I say up to 180 days, it depends on which how you enter Mexico. So for instance, when I went through Playa del Carmen, they were just giving days. They were just like, here. The first time I was there, I think I got like 100 days maybe, and then I had left for Thanksgiving, and then I went back and I got 180 days. This time that I came in, they asked me how long I wanted. And I told them that I was probably going to be here for about a month, because I have an appointment in Chicago in a few weeks. So, but they gave me 90 days. So it really just depends on the place that you go to. So what you would need to research is tourist visa, or how long you can stay in the country as a U.S. citizen. Colombia, for instance, they give 90 days upon arrival, and then you can renew it for an additional 90 days. So that's like 180 days that you can get per year. Mexico is not, they don't have a per year cap. So you can come in and out as frequently as you do. You just don't know how much time you might get that they'll allow you to stay. But there's not a like, you can only stay this many days per calendar year. Whereas in Colombia, you can only stay 180 days per calendar year. So that's one of the things that you find out, is you figure out where the place is that you're feeling drawn to, and then how many days are you able to stay, and whether you need to apply for a tourist visa ahead of time, or if you can just get it upon arrival. So it's very different from every particular place. That was a good question. Any other questions? I'll hang out for about another 5 minutes. Any other questions that you all might have about what this looks like? Sounds like Kenya. Yes, Kenya is on my list. I definitely want to get to Africa. I did an African ancestry, it might have been this around the same time, like 2019, and I found out that I have Cameroonian roots. Cameroon has a lot going on right now, so I won't be going to Cameroon, but I do want to go to Nigeria. I want to go to Ghana. I want to see the Door of No Return. I just want to feel connected to the motherland. I've never been. So that is something that is definitely on my list, and Kenya is one of those places that's on my list. So definitely Candace will be talking to you about taking that on, because that'll be our Chicago conversation, because I definitely do want to do that. Some of the other places that are on my list are like Bali. I really want to go to Bali, and I want to see what life is like there. It's so, our dollar is so strong, y'all, like in these places. So Mexico is inexpensive, but it's not by any means the least expensive place. But when you start talking about Colombia, when you start talking about Thailand, South Korea, it is so inexpensive for us making US dollars to live in those places. So it really is, like I said, a matter of having your passport and just rolling out. So yeah, Erica, I did AfricanAncestry.com, and African Ancestry will allow you to get your maternal roots, so everybody on your maternal side of your family, if you do an African ancestry, you'll have the answer for all of them. So like for my mother, for my cousins, for my aunts, we all have Cameroonian roots. And that's something that I found out through doing African ancestry. For you to understand your paternal roots, you would have to have a direct male relative do an African ancestry so you can get that information. But when I did it, I found out Cameroonian roots, and the tribes are Tikar, Hausa, and I want to say Fulani. So that's something that I'm going to dive into, is really understanding more about that. But African ancestry, I am so grateful that I did it because it really answered a lot of questions for me. I know a lot of people that want to move to Bali, Tasha. I've heard that it is Erica. I'm not doing this with you on this live. Sorry, y'all. I get distracted. But that was funny. But yeah, I've heard that Bali is like so beautiful. So I really want to go there. I also want to go to Portugal. So what I do, y'all, is I basically look at good places for Black expats, and then I kind of just go from there. So Costa Rica is one of the places. Peru is also on my list of places to go. This time when I go to Colombia, I am going to go to Medellin, but I also want to go to Cartagena because there's a really big Afro-Colombian population there. So I definitely want to do that. And wherever the wind blows. Like, what is so amazing about being a consultant and working for myself is I can work from wherever I am. So I take this show on the road and I go and be amazing. What you asking, Sasha? What is the word you're saying? Black what? Oh, thanks, Leslie. So yeah, so I really am in this space of just trying to explore and trying to figure out. To the point of Costa Rica, and Erica, I'm gonna call you out on this while you're talking about you and Jada, since you're here on this live, and I feel my prophetic setting in right quick, ma'am. That retreat that you're supposed to be working on, sis, I hope you're working on it because it's supposed to happen in either Costa Rica or Belize is what God showed me. So I need you to get on the good foot, sis. Appreciate you. But at any rate, there's a world out here, y'all, and I just want us to be able to explore. So Candace is on here. She was talking about going to Kenya in September. She's an amazing person to follow as well. That's who I'm going to be in Chicago with in a few weeks. So I am all about connecting people, right? And getting people to a place where you're able to get the freedom that you deserve. Y'all, sometimes I be having to let people know because Erica know we had a whole conversation, y'all, in what that place called, Slim and Huskies in Nashville. Don't go, I'm talking to you. Don't you go nowhere. You received this word. But yes, it is. There's a whole world out here to see, and there's so much for us to do that we didn't even know was possible and for us. So I really want us to be able to experience the fullness of life and not feel like we have to limit ourselves. So I just messed up my whole setup here. So I'm a run. But what I want to say again is, if you haven't followed me, y'all, please follow me, Minding My Black Ass Business, again, here on Instagram, on Facebook, on YouTube. Go to mindingmybblackassbusiness.com. Check out the merch. If you feel so led, cop a t-shirt. If you feel like you need to get one for somebody else, feel free to do that as well. There's also the Black and Free line that's there if you don't want to wear the word ass on your chest. I understand. So there's also the Black and Free line, and I'm going to be coming out with this new line, Professional Frolicker. So pay attention and stay tuned for that. Other than that, I will look forward to those DMs of you all sharing with me whether you want to explore coaching or whether you want to explore becoming a coach. Let me know that as well. And I will let you all know when part 2 is coming out, because that's a lot too. Maybe I might do that next week, maybe. But I will let you all know about part 2 as well, because I also feel like that is going to speak to some people's spirits. So I love y'all so much, so much. I hope you can feel the love all the way from Mexico. This is me giving you a big old hug and things. Share, y'all, comment, tag people in the comments that you feel like need to hear this, and I will be talking to you all soon. All right. Love y'all. Oh, thank you. I am loving. I'm getting in touch with this hair. I'm starting to love it. Okay, I'm really starting to love it. So, I have a frolicking appointment here in the park, so I'm gonna do that, and I might, share a story or something so y'all can see what my frolicking looks like. But I will be talking to you all soon. Okay, love you all.